The Indianapolis Colts defeated the Arizona Cardinals in a tough tilt on Sunday. So what did we learn about the Colts after a gritty victory at home? What needs to improve for them to make a serious push to stay at the top of the AFC with 11 games left? And what do you, the fans, expect from this team going forward? Well, let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, as always presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com. I'm Drake Wally, co-deputy editor for the site, analyst, and co-host of the show. And of course, I'm joined by fellow analyst of the site and co-host Noah Gebert. Before we even get started, thank you guys so much. I had some stuff come up yesterday, and we had to pivot. So I appreciate everybody just kind of rolling with the punches here. But I mean, Noah, this team, people will look at this game and they'll say, well, you barely beat, a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we'll get into that, but they won. They won a tough game. That Arizona team clearly doesn't lose games by very much. Now they've lost 4 in a row by a total of 9 points.
Yeah.
Good defense, better defense than people think. So how are you doing, man? What'd you think of this victory? And what's your initial reaction from Indianapolis moving to 4-0 at LOS?
Yeah, we're good. I mean, we're good. I think the Colts to this point in the season have really proven that they're a tier above some of these lower level teams that they've played in the past. Tennessee Titans, Miami Dolphins, these teams that they've blown out, Oakland Raiders or Las Vegas Raiders. And then, this is just kind of what happens in the NFL. It's just not every game's a blowout, right? Even if you feel like you're a step above your opponent. And the Cardinals definitely are a step above some of the other teams that they've definitely taken these 2-3 possession leads against. But yeah, I mean, this is just, you win a tough game and you do it. I was a little bit nervous coming in because the Colts historically have had some issues with backup quarterbacks. We've mentioned Drew Lock, Taylor Heineke, those kind of guys in the past. So yeah, I was a little bit nervous about Jacoby Brissett coming in, and the Cardinals offense just had a good game plan for Jacoby Brissett, and the Colts defense didn't really have a good game plan against it. I don't necessarily think it was anything of lack of motor or lack of intensity or just kind of playing down to your opponent, kind of like how it seemed like it's been in the past. I just think coaching wise, there was a little bit of a battle back and forth on both sides of the ball. And I mean, it was a close game. You were down starting the fourth quarter. You got the lead. You held on for the final drive. It's just a complete gritty win, and a win in a way that hasn't really happened to this point in the season. So yeah, a game you came in, you were expected. They're undefeated at home so far this season, handled their business. I'm never going to complain about what the final score is. Because when we're talking about this team in January, which I mean, this is a 5-1 team at this point, number 1 seed in the AFC. At this point, you're thinking postseason aspirations and where this kind of stacks up and what these results of these games mean for you in January. A win means a win, a loss means a loss. The final score means nothing. So we're taking the win and we're moving on to next week.
Yeah, and before we just jump into stuff here, it's a little bit of a shift, but it has to do with the competition level, right, of what the Colts have faced. People completely forget about Denver because of the circumstances as to how they won. That's still a top 5 defense, and Daniel Jones still his best game of the season, and most yards he's thrown in a game was against that team, and he was pressured over 20 times, and then he faces the Rams. Okay, and by all regards, they should have won that game. Who knows if he throws that second interception if they're not behind. But Teddy Bruschi, the legendary linebacker from the New England Patriots, showed his ineptitude and his lack of, I guess, watching the Colts play football on Get Up, which he's with Rex Ryan. That's all that you need to hear about that. While Rex was basically spitting and talking at the same time, Teddy Bruschi before that had these words to say. Mike Greenbaum asked, should the AFC big boys fear Indianapolis? Here's what Teddy Bruschi said. I don't think so. I say no. They beat the Cardinals and the Raiders the last 2 weeks. Put context to it, the Cardinals defense is completely overlooked, and they've lost again by a total of 9 points. Yeah. And then the Raiders, the Colts destroyed them, a 34-point victory. Daniel Jones is still throwing throws like this. I think that he had a video up of that pick he threw against the Cardinals. Not the best pick. But then he said, and fair catch interceptions to defenders down the field. And then he finished by saying, they beat the Broncos on a leverage call. It doesn't matter. They won the football game. I understand. This is a 5-1 football team that still has a lot to prove to me. You don't win Super Bowls in week 6. Daniel Jones has a lot to prove to me that he can be a quarterback like a Baker Mayfield, like a Josh Allen, like a Patrick Mahomes. Funny he says that because the number one quarterback rating in the entire NFL is Daniel Jones, who, to his chagrin, is better than Josh Allen, better than Baker Mayfield, better than Patty Mahomes. My point is, the reason I brought that up is because the national media, national outlets, of course, there's people that are starting to see this. I mean, it's undeniable at this point that you have to at least give them some respect. But the competitive level of what we just saw from the Arizona Cardinals is just better. Now, I will say this, Noah. If they would have had Kyler Murray, maybe it's a different outcome, or maybe it's worse for the Cardinals because he takes risks and tends to dig himself in a hole. But I just wanted to get your opinion on a comment like that because two things. I personally feel like Teddy Bruschi does not like Indianapolis.
Why you would,
I don't think that he likes the Colts. I think that he probably feels that the team robbed him of a couple more rings. But the other side of it is the schedule is not leading up to this week against the Chargers. They have had 3 games where you kind of have to look at those games like, okay, what did you really play? Maybe even 4 games at this point. So what are your thoughts on those comments? I was curious to hear what you thought about Bruschi's comments there.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's just national media guy needing to say something about a team he probably hasn't watched a ton. If you look at point differential, which Chris Ballard is huge on in terms of how you're succeeding in the NFL, I think the Colts have the best point differential in the league, 78 or 79 points that they're above their opponents on for the first 6 weeks of the season. That's a massive number for the first 6 weeks. I think second place is tied for around 49. So just in terms of the NFL and the league-wide, the amount that you're winning by each week is insane. So you're talking about some lesser opponents, but you're going against these opponents and you're putting up you're putting up what you're expected to put up. And the games that you've played against these good opponents, you're not going to argue that the Broncos aren't a good team. Even if you think, hey, maybe that leverage call shouldn't have happened. They were with them all 4 quarters. Los Angeles Rams, very good team with them all 4 quarters. So you're at least ranking them in that kind of tier. I don't know why you would think they'd be anything less than that. Both of us were a little pessimistic coming into the season about what the offense is going to look like with Daniel Jones. By week 3, we were like, they're looking good, and they're looking good in ways that seems like it's pretty sustainable. And it's week 6 now. It's been sustainable. We're going into week 7. It's been sustainable. The play hasn't really fallen off. We've had a couple of maybe I wouldn't even say down games from Daniel Jones. I don't think you've had bad games. I think you've had a couple bad throws from Daniel Jones, but for the most part, this offense is running super effectively, super efficiently. This is I think a case of a national media member not knowing what he's looking at for sure. And if you're asking me, I don't think the Colts really have much left to prove in terms of how good of a football team they are. I think they're very much in that conversation. They're going to be a team that should have some championship aspirations. When they're looking forward to how the season should play out. I think if you're internal in the Colts organization, there's no reason why you shouldn't think, hey, we can make a deep playoff push and see what happens in late January, early February. So I think they've proven it. They've been consistent. We're probably going to see that throughout the rest of the season. These talking points are definitely going to fall off because the schedule for the Colts is very backloaded. You're facing a lot of good teams very quickly, starting with the Chargers next week. Then you go back to the Titans. Once that second Titans game is done, it's a kind of a gauntlet running through to the end of the season. So, maybe they can have these conversations right now early in the season because of the schedule. But by the end of the season, we're not going to be talking like this about the Colts.
Yeah, and one last thing that I'll mention, this is actually me and my opinion on one thing he said. You don't win Super Bowls in week 6. Who in the hell has ever said that? Who in the hell in the history of football has ever has been quoted as saying, we're 5-1, we've won the Super Bowl? It's like, no joke, dude. Of course you don't. So definitely a guy who is very pissy about just hearing Indianapolis's name. So, but we're going to go ahead and dive into something that is just ridiculous. Two things that are ridiculous, and that is the pregame insanity. So we'll just go ahead and, because I know Patrick is going to have a field day in the comments about a certain quarterback. But we'll start with Charvarius Ward. All right. So if anyone didn't see the video, please go on to X, go on to YouTube, go on to Google and type in Charvarius Ward runs into Drew Ogletree. You'll get everything you need. Charvarius Ward is running cornerback drills, and whoever's fault it was is beside the point. But it's announced that he has a concussion and won't play. And you're thinking, what happened?
Yeah.
And so you look at the video, and he doesn't see Drew Ogletree somehow. And you keep in mind, this is an NFL field is 53 and a half yards wide. So much room. And he runs his head into Drew Ogletree so hard that he spins in midair and falls to the ground. And he's just sitting there. Everyone's around him, and he looks like he's trying to find his focus.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking, what in the hell is going on? And the Colts cornerback room was already decimated. You needed Charvarius Ward out there. He's gone. But just to put icing on the cake, even more ridiculous, just because he's struggled so much to stay healthy, Anthony Richardson he's working in the locker room with, I believe it was resistance bands. And I don't know. I think that it was something to do with he was like working with the bands. And if I'm wrong on this, I feel like I'm still in the ballpark. But like it was attached to something on the wall. And I think it came off the wall and it just flopped right into his face. And it broke his orbital bone or fractured his orbital bone, which is just basically right here. It's under the eye. So he's officially on IR. He had to get hospitalized. You're out your backup quarterback. God forbid if Jones would have had to take a couple plays off or something.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, your rookie quarterback drafted in the 6th round, Riley Leonard, is out there. And Charvarius Ward going down meant Mekhi Blackman was your CB1 out of nowhere. So tell me about your thoughts on that. I will say, especially with the Charvarius Ward injury, we'll get into it later. I thought the Colts, they traversed that pretty well because that could have been a disaster.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a lot. Not even just talking about, hey, you're down Charvarius Ward now, which is huge. It's kind of like mentally resetting after that happens about 30 seconds or 30 minutes before game time. And it's in a position where like it's too late. You've already announced who your inactives are, and then your number one corner goes down. I sent you a text right after that happens. They've got 4 corners on the active roster right now.
Yeah.
Lou Anarumo, I think it is in his interviews before the game, he's talking about he doesn't even know what they're going to do if one of those guys goes down and has to miss some time. So I mean, they definitely caught a break throughout the game. I don't think there was one announcement of an injury for a Colts player during the game. Nobody had to come out and miss any snaps due to injury, based on everything that I saw. But yeah, I mean, you were in a tough spot where Jonathan Edwards is in the game. He's getting targeted a lot because he got thrust into a role. And I do want to I guess just not criticize Jonathan Edwards too much in this position because of the position he was put in. Obviously, they targeted him a ton, and you should if you're the offensive coordinator and you know this undrafted rookie is getting thrust into a role 30 minutes before game time when he likely didn't prepare for that. And I feel like he had pretty good coverage. He was in pretty good position for most of those plays. Just wasn't able to break up the pass. A lot of passes were completed on him. But yeah, I mean that Charvarius Ward thing. I've seen a lot of discourse about. How do you punish Drew Ogletree for that? There's no punishing for Drew. Ogletree.
Neither one of them was looking at it.
Yeah, I know it's a freak act. If it was Drew Ogletree that got the concussion and Charvarius Ward walked away fine and played in the game, you wouldn't be calling for punishment for Charvarius Ward. So yeah, it's just a weird situation. And then yeah, I mean that's obviously the big one because that's the one that affected in snaps what your game plan is going to be. I think it affected the Cardinals' offensive game plan, which we can get into. As we go in and talk about the defensive side of the ball. But then on top of all that, you had your backup quarterback, notorious for having some injury issues. And this should be completely unrelated. This shouldn't be a part of the discussion when we're talking about injury issues for a quarterback. There's no way for a person to strengthen their orbital bone. You can't prepare for that injury if you're working with a resistance band. And I mean, maybe he was doing something crazy with it, but I doubt it. I mean, it's pregame stuff in the locker room. Yeah, I heard it was attached to a pole. The pole dislodged somehow, hit him in the eye. I mean, there's really no words for that. It's just a ridiculous event. I mean, either of those events happening pregame is crazy. To have them both happen in the same week is extra weird. So yeah, just props to the coaching staff for getting it together after that and settling everybody down and getting everybody in the right headspace to go out there and play a football game and come away with the win. I know it was a little tighter than a lot of fans would have liked, but man, just overcoming that I think is a win in itself. So we'll take that, move on, expect that to never happen again. I think now you're just thinking, what's this look like long term for both of these positions? You're talking about backup quarterback. You don't really want to throw Riley Leonard in that role, despite the Colts fans' love for him being a Notre Dame quarterback. And now, I mean, Charvarius Ward, this is his second concussion since week 2, so second concussion in 5 weeks. He just got back healthy. It's dangerous. That's a rough spot to be in. For an NFL player. I'm expecting him not to play this upcoming week against the Chargers, maybe not the week after at the Titans. And especially this Chargers game, that's a matchup where you're going to need to figure out what you're doing at corner, because obviously Jonathan Edwards had a target on his back getting thrust in the game. A lot of that's on film now. I expect Justin Herbert, the Chargers, to be able to take advantage of those kind of matchups as well. So, yeah, just figuring out what you're doing there at the cornerback spot, backup quarterback, maybe a little bit less important, but yeah, just trying to figure out both of those options, because it's not something that just knocked him out for that game. You've got to plan for this in the future now.
Yeah, and Patrick Ryan said that he says here he's been a fan of the Colts for 53 years, and that he's seen a lot of strange things happen going all the way back to Baltimore. This franchise definitely, Patrick, seems to have just the weirdest things sometimes happen to it. And of course, Patrick Rye makes a great point. He says, you can drink more milk, duh, strong bones, say your prayers and eat your vitamins, brother. So,
he didn't have his Flintstone gummies before.
Yeah. Yeah. Richardson's, he's lacking the enough 2% milk before every game. But look, at the end of the day, man, we can go ahead and get this out of the way. They made up for this by signing Brett Riping to the practice squad, which means that right now, he might get elevated, who knows, but right now the next line of defense behind Daniel Jones is Riley Leonard. And I'm telling you guys out there that want him to start, want to see what he's got. I'm not saying you don't want to see it, right? But like, if he's out there playing football, the offense, whatever it's been doing, it is going to plummet. It's just going to plummet. So you're hoping, Go ahead.
I'm looking for any kind of overlap with Brett Rippon and any of this Colts coaching staff. I don't know that I'm seeing any. Looks like he was with the Vikings off-season practice squad 2024. He was with the
Bengals last year.
I don't know if that overlapped with I don't know if Lou Anarumo has any insight on that. I don't know if Daniel Jones has any insight. I don't know if their time even overlapped there in his short stint with the Vikings. First time on the active roster since 2023 with the New York Jets, Brett Rippon. So we'll see where we're at. You needed another body there regardless. You need to have someone to be that third quarterback. So I imagine they'll get through this week, see where he's at with the playbook. I can't imagine this week he'd be quarterback too. I don't know. We'll see what the plan is there. Hopefully that's not something you have to worry about. Daniel Jones has had some injury history in the past, but this season really, even despite some big hits he's taken, hasn't really had to come out of the game for anything other than victory formation kneel downs in the fourth quarter. So yeah, hopefully this is a non-issue and we can get Brett Rippon up to speed in the next couple of weeks, so we can maybe see a quarterback 2 battle between Riley Leonard, Brett Rippon. Not something you want to see, and not something you want to talk about. But yeah, very much had to prepare for that, because with an IR stint, with it's at least 4 weeks you're missing from Anthony Richardson. So we'll see what happens there at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. You're just, right now you're just kind of trying to find the depth, and once he's back, I fully expect the Colts to make a cut or make a release Ripon if he does end up making any sort of noise or getting on the roster. But we're going to go ahead and jump into the biggest impact performers from this game. So I'll go ahead and start. One of the guys that I had as a riser for my risers and fallers piece, it was the run defense. I thought that the Colts really did a good job. Grover Stewart, man, you're looking at when you look at the defensive grades, he was second overall per PFF. He was number 1 in the run defense grade. He just did a really good job. That's what you pay Grover Stewart to do. Yeah. That's what you pay him to be. He's not going to blow away the quarterback sack metrics. He's not going to do any of that stuff. But I will say that the one thing that the Cardinals weren't able to do too much of, they scored on the ground, but they didn't run the ball too effectively. And at the end of the day, Grover Stewart really helped them keep this in check. 24 carries, 88 yards, only a long of 12. Really good job, actually, by NFL standards. So I tip my hat to Grover Stewart. It was a game where you couldn't let them beat you on the ground. You had to put it in Jacoby Brissett's hands, and we'll get to that later. But yeah, Grover Stewart's one of mine. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to throw out another defensive lineman here, and it's somebody who we've really talked about this whole entire season as being someone who's kind of underperformed and put a lot of pressure on some other spots of the defense, and that's Kwity Paye on the defensive side of the ball. I think this is the first time that you saw Kwity Paye really make an impact in the run game and the pass game consistently through all 4 quarters of the game. Solid run defense. Got home on a sack. I know it was a stunt, so he came pretty much untouched. I think that was Tyquan Lewis that kind of freed him up for that sack, grabbing that double team. But yeah, just someone who was there and making an impact in a week where you kind of needed it from somebody, because there was, that defensive line needed to play well with the situation that you were put in on the back end there. Jonathan Edwards, Mekhi Blackman. I think they played as good as they could. They weren't even going up against the juggernaut of a Cardinals offense in terms of, Marvin Harrison Jr. left really early in the game. You're facing Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson, Zay Jones, like these guys. It's not a juggernaut of a receiving core that you're going against, but just as much, it's not a juggernaut of a defensive back group that you were facing. So, you had to pick your poison there, play where your strengths were at. It seems like the defensive line held it together and played pretty well, and you got some good performances, like you mentioned there, out of Grover Stewart, out of Kwity Paye. And then if you're turning to the offensive side of the ball, this is a good Cardinals defense. And despite what people will say about, hey, Teddy Bruschi saying this was a win against the Cardinals. Yeah, the Cardinals are pretty good, and they have a pretty solid NFL defense. It's not just like you have 1 or 2 players here that are impact players, like we've talked about with some of these other teams. Max Crosby on the Raiders, you're talking about, and some of these like NFL level guys. Like, this is a pretty solid all around defense there for the Arizona Cardinals. It has been all year. Colts were able to put some drives together early on in the game and late in the game. There was some lulls there in the middle, but yeah, there were some players that really made that happen. I think Josh Downs again had a good game, being that guy who, when the offense was really struggling to stay on schedule, you weren't getting some yardage on runs. You were getting some incompletions on first down, getting 2nd and 10, 3rd and long. It was Josh Downs, the guy who seemed like he was always the one that was getting targeted to get the offense back on schedule. Just throw it to him for 3 yards, let him create, get 3 more, get 6, get back down into 3rd and 4, a manageable third down for you. So it seems like he was just like the regulator on the offensive side of the ball, who was able to fix things when things weren't going well and get you back on schedule when you were having a rough time, really getting some things going on in the early downs.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Josh Downs, just because he's been kind of drowned in Michael Pittman Jr., who, by the way, had like 2 catches. The Cardinals did an exceptional job, but this really speaks to the variety and the volume and the depth of the Colts starting pass catchers, because the rest of them picked up the slack. But man, Josh Downs, he finally got that elusive touchdown. I'm looking at the box score right here, and he yet again tied with Tyler Warren for number of catches. Of course, he only had 42 yards, but you don't expect your slot receiver to blow up the yards per catch. But he did have a touchdown, and it was a damn good catch, And Daniel Jones has really started to find Josh Downs quickly. But like you said, we do have to mention this about Josh Downs. Yes, he can catch. He's a crisp route runner. He plays bigger than what his stature indicates. But it is his awareness once he's got the ball in his hands. He knows where to find the holes. He knows how to get guys to miss. You see him often catch a ball and turn to the outside when he feels a defender's on the inside, and vice versa. He just has unreal football instincts. And so the fact that he was able to get another touchdown, that's great. I think that for me, the biggest impact performer on offense, I don't want to go with the obvious here. So instead, I'll go with a guy that just continues to impress me, and that's Tanner Bortolini. I'm going with him on the inside. You expect it from Ryman. He just got paid a $100 million contract. You expect this from Nelson. You expect this from Braden Smith. because he's been doing it at a high level for so long. Man, Tanner Bortolini is just showing through and through that he is a legitimate starting center. He's the starting center for the foreseeable future for the Colts. He's filled in for who will be a Ring of Honor member one day, and Ryan Kelly, seamlessly, and in many ways has played better than Kelly did last year. So I'm just wildly impressed. And he had to deal with guys like Calais Campbell all game, who's been in this league almost 20 years, but still plays at a very high level. So, I mean, look, it's got to get you excited, right, Noah? If your center, who is just coming into his second season, his first season being a full-time starter, is playing like that, because per PFF, the only guys that were ahead of him were Quentin Nelson with a 90 grade, Bernard Raymond with an 86.9. Of course, he finished with 85.3. But what are your thoughts on Tanner Bortolini's Sunday?
Yeah, Tanner Bortolini, I think, is a guy who's really played well all year, largely in the run game. I think this is maybe the first game where or at least to this point in the season, his best complete game in both phases, where you've had Matt Gonsalves beside you, who's been a really, really solid pass blocker for the first 5 weeks of the season. This past week, Matt Gonsalves really struggled. Going on the interior. Calais Campbell obviously has something to say about why he was struggling, but Gonsalves has given up, I think, 4 of the 5 quarterback hits that happened in this game. Almost half of the total pressures that the Cardinals generated were against Matt Gonsalves and his matchup, which is interesting that they kind of targeted him as somebody who's been so solid in pass protection through the first 5 weeks. But this is, Tanner Bortolini really held his own in those matchups. So, I mean, you couldn't have 2 leaky spots on the offensive line, so it's good that Tanner Bortolini really put together a complete game here this week when he did. Really, I think that if he didn't, and he had some similar pass blocking struggles that he's had earlier on in the season, then you would have had really a gaping hole there in the interior of the offensive line. Really could have disrupted things even more. I know there were some times where the Colts offense was struggling a little bit, but that would have disrupted things even more. And in a game where there were such tight margins there, and you pull it out barely at the end in the fourth quarter, just with that 4th down stop and on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, this is a game of inches and game where really any play could have swung anything. So it's good that Tanner Bortolini really had that complete game. It allowed a guy like Matt Gonsalves, who had been so solid in pass blocking, to kind of have one of his not so good days, and you still come away with a really solid offensive output and the win.
Yeah, and this has to be pointed out. Dang it, Patrick, you're killing me. So Matt Gonsalves was brutal when it comes to pass blocking. A 6.8 per PFF. That's almost 20 less than Jonathan Taylor. Just really, really struggled. Now, it's good that he had a game like that and they were able to win, because it can be a teaching lesson. I mean, he went up against, it can't be overstated that Calais Campbell might be ancient by NFL standards. I mean, he's been playing for so long, it's ridiculous. Yeah. But he is an animal. I mean, he commands double teams. He will wreck your entire game plan if you let him. So that's the biggest reason, without question, why Matt Gonsalves struggled. But you are hoping that changes, because you just cannot have that kind of pressure let up in the interior. I mean, it's not going to work out for you if you keep doing that. But I do like that you brought up his struggles, because I think it's going to do him good. But it's good that they won, and I think it's going to be easier for him to learn. So, but yeah, this next one, man, I think that one of the biggest things in this entire season for the Indianapolis Colts has just been the relentless offensive pursuit. They've just been so aggressive. They've been able to put up efficient performances. So we'll go ahead and jump into it. Now, they started off well, and, pretty much the entire game, if you're looking at each quarter by quarter. Oh, it looks like we lost Noah for a second. Basically, this was a team that looked the part. I mean, Arizona's defense, people are going to overlook them. They're just going to do it. It's not something that you're going to see people be like, oh, well, Arizona's defense is miraculous. It's fantastic. It's top notch. But Jonathan Gannon, there is something to be said about his schemes. He does a really good job of keeping quarterbacks on their toes, similar to Lou Anarumo, but it's obviously a different approach. Anarumo's scheme is one of one. So we have, I think we have, yes, there he is. He has returned triumphantly. There he is, Noah Gebert. No, basically, we were just kind of diving into, the Colts did a good job of staying on schedule. I mean, this is the entire offensive success and failure, is the way to beat this team, and it's no secret. This is with a lot of really good offenses. This is the primary way to beat them, is to just knock them off of a routine, derail their momentum. Right, that's what you saw the Rams do. And even though the Colts should have won that game, you did see the Rams do a good job of keeping the Colts off schedule. Now, Indianapolis, they started off with a touchdown, then they had to punt, and then they had to punt again. But, eventually they kind of started to gain their momentum. And as the third quarter came around, you saw them really fighting back and forth with the Cardinals. But honestly, Noah, they still, even against the defense that pushed them, they threw an interception. They punted multiple times, which is something they have avoided. They still scored 31 points. They still find a way to do it. The least they've scored is 20. What are your thoughts on the offensive performance? Because there were some times there where you were like, are they like losing momentum, and then they would just find it again?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty solid. I think the Cardinals had a clear game plan to disrupt them, like you mentioned early on in the downs, to try to keep them off schedule. They've been so good at that throughout the year, getting into 2nd and 6, 3rd and 3, and being able to convert these because, 3rd and 3 is pretty high percentage play for the offense. You should be able to convert that. If you're getting to 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s, that makes things a little bit more questionable. I think the Cardinals did a pretty good job of doing that for the Colts offense, at least like halfway through the first quarter. Early on in the second quarter, there was a drive or a few drives, punt, interception, all in a row. Just that little lull in the offense where they were disrupted early on, and there was an incomplete deep shot to Alec Pierce, put them in 2nd and 10. Just some things that kept them off schedule, they couldn't get the running game going early on first down. Put them in 2nd and 11 a couple times. So it was just not generally what we see from the Colts offense. You should expect that. You're not going to be on schedule every single drive. They've been that in the past, but you're facing a really good Arizona Cardinals defense. And they were able to stay on schedule enough and keep the drives moving and create enough points to come away with the win. I mean, you've just got an offense that's firing on all cylinders and really effective and is really hard to stop. So even if you are a really good defense and you do manage to get them to stall out for a few drives there in the middle of the game, you get the punt, you get the interception. I think there was another touchdown after that, but then you get the punt again. I mean, this was a busy day for Rigoberto Sanchez compared to the last 5 weeks that he's had. But still, you're putting up 31 points. You're generating a lot of points in the red zone, which has been a pressure point for the Colts offense in previous weeks. But yeah, I'm not sure if it ended up being this way, if it was 4 out of 4 touchdowns for the red zone trips. I know at some point in the fourth quarter, that's what the stat was. So they would have been 10 out of 10 in the last 2 weeks in the red zone, which is a complete turnaround from the issues that you saw early on in the year where they were like bottom 5 in terms of red zone production throughout the league. Now I think they're top 10 in converting touchdowns in the red zone. So things can swing for you quickly, and this offense is really putting it all together. Even if you do get a few stall outs, you get Rigoberto Sanchez involved in the punting game more than you wanted him to. I mean, it's just an offense that if you see some struggles early on in the pass game or taking those deep shots, Jim Bob Cooter, Shane Steichen, these guys are sticking to the game plan, right? And they're going in, they're keeping Jonathan Taylor's legs moving, they're feeding him the ball. I think he had 25 touches this week, pretty consistent with what he's been seeing throughout the entire season. These personnel sets, a lot of Drew Ogletree, a lot of Mo Alley Cox in there, sometimes 3 tight ends with Tyler Warren in there as a fullback, these 13 personnel. That really wasn't working early on in the game, but you just stick with it, and eventually that's throughout the first 5 weeks, that's proven to be the thing that gets you down in the second half and lets you run down the clock and control the ball, continue to produce. So, yeah, I mean, they're just operating well. They're sticking with it, even if you see some lulls here, like we did see in the first, probably 5 drives. You saw some lulls there with the Colts offense. So I would expect you'll probably see that. I mean, this is probably more what a real NFL game is going to look like for the rest of the season with the Colts, especially when you're talking about the level of opponents that they're going to be playing from here on out in the season. especially this game coming up against the Chargers, is I think is going to be your next big look at. We saw this against the Rams, against like a Super Bowl caliber team or a playoff caliber team. Saw that against the Broncos. Saw that against the Rams. Now we're going to see that again with the Los Angeles Chargers. So you should expect more close games like this where you do have some punts, you do have some stall outs, but you stick to your game plan, stick to your running game, keep that going, keep yourself on schedule. Eventually you'll find yourself back on track, one, because of the play calling and your stubbornness to kind of do what you came into the game plan trying to do, and two, because of the play of the quarterback and how he's not been rattled. We saw the really rough interception where you're just thinking, why would you throw that? Even in Madden, I wouldn't hit that button and throw that interception with that linebacker right there.
He should
probably didn't expect Mac Wilson to sky that high and really come up with that play. But I mean, that's a play you shouldn't make that mistake and throw that interception on. But man, Daniel Jones bounced back immediately after that and had a really strong performance after that. Didn't make that mistake later on where he took that bootleg and had some options and ended up taking the ball for a 17-yard gain, rushing it. So yeah, I mean, it's just a quarterback that's learning and playing really well and continuing to keep this offense effective and stable, even when you do have some lulls in performance.
Yeah, I mean, it does help. It does help that this team has got so many ways to attack. But yes, before we even address the rest of what this offense was able to accomplish, Daniel Jones, man, he's showing this was good for him because he destroyed the Dolphins. And then you do have a great performance against the Broncos, but it was one on Spencer Schrader's leg. And then you turn around, you destroy the Titans. And he kind of had some struggles against the Rams. Of course, that's marred by A.D. Mitchell's gaffes. And we do have to point out that he was kind of in an uphill battle and thrown into a really difficult situation where, of course, he threw a pick. But then he faces the Raiders and, you get destroyed. They destroyed him. In this game specifically, he had to lead that fourth quarter comeback.
Yeah.
Okay, he had to be at the helm of that. And it was against a defense that is good. And I don't care what anybody says. The Cardinals might not have much outside of Calais Campbell or Budda Baker per se, but they've got guys. They've got just a great team unit on defense for Jonathan Gannon to work with, which is more deadly in many ways than having a couple of superstars on your defense, is when you've got everyone's playing collectively and probably the least of what you have starting of those 11 stop troops is good, right? So Daniel Jones, man, he was asked to go win the game, and he went and won the freaking game. Of course, the defense had to stop, make the stop at the end. But man, Daniel Jones did a great job of bouncing back, because it's not easy to bounce back after a bad interception like that.
Yeah, and that's the second time that you've really kind of had a bad interception. You've seen Daniel Jones not get rattled like he has been previously in his career. You saw those two interceptions. I mean, there was the one interception early on, and then that second play to Cam Kitchens in a game a couple weeks ago. And then for the rest of the game after that, it was calm, collected, confident. This game, obviously, that interception to Mac Wilson on the rollout that you don't think you should have thrown. And then he comes back, he makes some really, really strong throws throughout the rest of the game where he's showing a lot of confidence in what he's doing, what he's able to do with his arm, not just the play calls and what he's getting everybody lined up before the snap, but after the play and his ability to create and layer some balls in there. Alec Pierce had that one catch or the throw to him where it went through a couple of defenders and just behind Alec Pierce, and he was able to turn and make that catch. It was a really confident quarterback making that throw, and you might argue maybe don't make that throw next time, DJ. But maybe you avoid that next time. Glad it worked there, but I mean, when you've got, it's obviously a quarterback who's feeling really confident in his throws. Even that Josh Downs touchdown at the end of the game, I thought that was really, it wasn't just like a strong arm throw. That was like really confident leaving that up there and leveling it over, layering it over that second level defender to get it there to Josh Downs on the backside line. So yeah, I mean, it was just, he's playing well, and the interceptions don't seem to be affecting him. That's two early on in games so far this season that he's bounced right back from. His third interception was the other one where he's maybe trying to do a little bit too much on a fourth quarter drive when you're desperate to go back there and win the game. So I'm not holding that one against him too much. You like to see him bounce back from those mistakes. And I don't think that's something that we're going to see go away throughout this season. He's been really good about that throughout the first 6 weeks of the season. He's been really good about like maintaining his composure and completing passes under pressure. This is just a quarterback that's playing confident, and he knows what he's seeing, and he knows how his offense is operating. He knows where his reads are at, and he knows the throws that he can make. He knows his arm pretty well, I think, at this point in the season. Maybe it's not as strong of an arm as it was early on in his career. Those deep balls are maybe waffling a little bit. It seems like he's more than willing to take those risks when you've got Alec Pierce down the field. But yeah, he's just, I feel like he's very much in his element, and he's in his zone right now, knowing where he's at with his arm, where he's at with his reads, where he's at with his receivers. The chemistry seems great.
Daniel Jones right now is on his way to, if he keeps up his average right now, he's going to have 11 rushing touchdowns. 11. Okay. If he keeps up what he's doing passing, he is going to have 23 touchdown passes. You're talking about 34 all-purpose touchdowns. I mean, he's playing. I mean, like, to give you guys just a real quick synopsis on how embarrassing Daniel Jones's career was with the Giants. His best season was when he was a rookie. All right. Like, he threw 24 touchdowns, ran in 2. He had 26 all-purpose. Even his 2022 season, he didn't do that. He had 15 through the air and 7 on the ground. That's still 4 less than his rookie year. His rookie year is when he got Danny Dimes. That's when they started calling him Danny Dimes. It sure as hell wasn't after that. But that's how bad he was with the Giants. And whether that was on him, whether that was on the organization, whether it clicked, I dare say that it was the atmosphere. It's just the atmosphere that's really clicked for him. But he's playing unreal football. That's why when you look at a numbskull like Teddy Bruschi saying that about Daniel Jones, it's like the guy is literally on his way to 34 all-purpose touchdowns and a measly 8 interceptions. And he hasn't fumbled. I mean, he's playing fantastic. And whatever anybody says, don't listen, because Daniel Jones looks great. And I have to eat my words, because for years – since joining this show, I have drugged this guy through the dirt, and I prayed they'd never make a move for him for any reason. And here he is, and now he's Indiana freaking Jones. So, I mean, hey, anything can happen in the NFL. But something else that really stood out, and we just have to kind of hum through these so we can get to the defense. Of course, Jonathan Taylor, just a destroyer of defenses. I mean, 123 yards. 5.9 average, another tud. He's got 8 on the year, I think, total. Touched the ball 25 times. He caught 4 passes. Of course, the offensive line always deserves credit when a running back does that kind of damage. But, I mean, Noah, this is the best Jonathan Taylor I've ever seen. I mean, it's not even close. He's on his way to an Offensive Player of the Year campaign. He won't win it, right? But he deserves to at least be put in the MVP conversation. What were your thoughts on yet another just fantastic performance from a guy who's he's playing out of his mind?
Yeah, just more of kind of what you've come to expect this season. It's not the Jonathan Taylor of 2023 or 2020. I guess, 2023 was his most explosive year in terms of production, where he's scoring a lot of touchdowns, breaking off a lot of big runs. You're still seeing that, but it's like, it's not just like the explosive runs that you're looking for from Jonathan Taylor. Like, you didn't get one this game, but you're still having a really solid game from him, where you get that swing pass out of the backfield, something that he's never really been excellent at in his career, where he gets that swing pass out of the right side of the field. Looks like he's going to gain 1 or 2 yards, but slips the tackle, gets 13, where he's running up the middle and makes a jump cut and turns a 3-yard gain into an 8-9 yard gain. Like, it's what fixes you from being not able to stay on schedule, right? Where most running backs, where you had, like, this is why the Colts have been so good at staying on schedule, is because you can get those runs. Even if you get to 2nd and 9, your first down play doesn't work, 2nd and 10, incomplete pass, you can hand it off to Jonathan Taylor. I know the Colts at the Chuck Pagano era, I think there was a lot of, when you had Andrew Luck on the field and you're like, why are we running the ball? Why are we running a draw play on 2nd and 10? Yeah. Right. This year it's working, right? Jonathan Taylor getting the ball on 2nd and 10 is just as good as throwing a pass to Tyler Warren, Josh Downs, where you can kind of expect, hey, maybe this was blocked up for 3 yards. Jonathan Taylor got you 5 or 6. Now you're in 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4. You'll take that, right? You want to stay on schedule that way. So it's not even just the explosive runs, which he's a threat every time he touches the ball to take it 58, 78 yards, whatever it's going to be for a long explosive run. It's just like he's just someone literally every down. Just give him the ball because you don't know what's going to happen. It's probably going to be good. He's either going to bust it for a really long run or it's going to keep your offense on schedule and you feel really reliable or feel like you have a really reliable piece of your offense there. So we're talking about all about how Daniel Jones is playing well, maybe a top 10, top 15 quarterback in the NFL, but you pair that with Jonathan Taylor, who's playing the best football of his career at this point, which I think is something we didn't necessarily expect because of how good his 2023 season was, how explosive he was that year, how it kind of falls off a little bit for running backs as they get a little bit older, a little bit longer in the tooth, a little bit more wear and tear on the body. But I mean, he's just played better than he ever has before in all three phases of the game. You don't take him off the field on third downs, and that gives you some more threats. I mean, it's just, yeah, there's not enough can really be said about Jonathan Taylor when you've got these two guys who are playing so well and out of their minds. They're the best they've ever played in their career, and they're Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones. That's obviously going to be enough to keep your offense going. And then you add in all those complementary pieces, which just seems just like a cherry on top at this point. I feel like the Colts offense would perform really well, even if they had a receiving core like the Cardinals rolled out there in the second half for their game last week. If you don't have Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, Tyler Warren, you don't have all these threats. If you take a couple of those threats away, you've still got a quarterback who's playing really confidently and getting the offense in the right position. You've got a running back who's going to be able to keep you on schedule and give you those explosive runs. It's just a really strong recipe for success with at least those two players.
Yeah, and one more thing that we'll briefly hit on, and this inspired me to write an article about the dude. Tyler Warren he just continues to make me say this. He looks like a 10-year veteran in the NFL. I mean, he's doing everything not right, not well, not good or great on an incredible level. He leads the team in receptions through 6 weeks. He had the most targets, the most yards in this game. I think it was Patrick that said something really funny, that I think it was that they need to buy the Chicago Bears a steak dinner for letting Tyler Warren pass. Just to make everybody, like, if anybody wants to laugh at me, please go ahead and do so, because I wanted the Colts to take Colston Loveland. I really did. And I look like a moron, and I'm okay with that. Sometimes that happens when you're covering the sport.
Yeah. Also, to be fair, I think he just suits the offense really well, and he suits Daniel Jones really well. When we're talking about Colston Loveland, we were operating under the assumption that Anthony Richardson's the starting quarterback for this season. He's a guy who's going to stretch it a little bit more vertically. Colston Loveland's, a guy who's going to rip the seam and really threaten you downfield, whereas Tyler Warren, can do that, but is also giving you a ton of stuff in the short passing game. I love the options that you have if you're the Colts on third down. It's third and short, and you've got Josh Downs and Tyler Warren on the field. I feel like you can go to either of them in any situation and maybe just go a little bit beyond the sticks and give it in contested catch situation to Tyler Warren, or throw it a little short of the sticks and let Josh Downs create and get you the first down. You just have options, and I feel like Tyler Warren's really suiting this offense. I mean, they came out of the gates in week one and really targeting him heavily, so it wasn't even like a ramp him up and see how much chemistry he can build with Daniel Jones. I mean, it was from the get-go. They were firing on all cylinders. They were on the same page. They continue to be, and I feel like that's going to continue throughout the whole season.
Yeah, so now what we'll do is, and this is going to be tough to talk about because there's a silver lining to the Colts' underwhelming defensive performance, right? We'll go ahead and start with the good, and then I'm going to get into, unfortunately, one specific player that has got to change a narrative going on right now with him. But so we'll go ahead and start with this. They're shorthanded, just like you put here in the tab. Jonathan Edwards, all right, I'm going to pick on him in not a bad way, but in an expected way. He looked overwhelmed. He looked completely overwhelmed, right? What else do you expect from an undrafted free agent, right? Or an undrafted rookie, my apologies. Yeah. You're not expecting this guy to go out there and light the world on fire. He wasn't expected to start, and then he sees this happen to Charvarius Ward pregame warmups, and then it's like, hey, buddy, here's your opportunity. Go out there and play. And while Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't play the entire game, and he hasn't had an absolutely gorgeous season, he's huge. He's physical. He can make some incredible highlight plays, and he can make defensive backs that are good look stupid. And so you just kind of saw Michael Wilson at times also bully around Jonathan Edwards. What were your thoughts on the secondary? Because I got to say, the Colts, I think they traded a 6th-round pick for Mekhi Blackmon.
Yep.
Dude has already had a couple interceptions. And for what they traded for to get him and the situation and the reason he had to get picked up, I think that given the ridiculous lack of talent that they had out there for that game, they did what they could, and it could have been worse.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, very worth it that you pick up Mekhi Blackmon for the 6th-round pick. Otherwise, I mean, is Xavier Howard retire at that point?
Oh, God.
Are you playing Keedrain Callaghan at outside corner, who just got cut from the practice squad today? I mean, you don't know where you're going to be at. I mean, you're finding other guys off the street. If you don't make that trade for Mekhi Blackmon, I guess maybe you keep Juju Brents at that point. But I mean, he obviously wasn't making waves while he was here with Louis Anarumo. I mean, Jalen Jones being injured, he obviously wasn't making waves with Louis Anarumo. I mean, you need the guys, right? You needed guys. He's another body that is at least capable. I know he's had some struggles, a couple of trips that have led to some big plays. He wasn't excellent in this game, but I mean, he was enough. But yeah, we'll go back to Jonathan Edwards because I think it's really important that we're going to talk about Jonathan Edwards and just throwing an undrafted rookie in there for, I think, 100% of the snaps. I think he was out there every snap, 71 defensive snaps for Jonathan Edwards, which is something you don't expect for that guy. And I'm just going to read off versus Marvin Harrison Jr., 1 target, 1 reception, 21 yards. Versus Trey McBride, 1 target, 1 reception, 26 yards. Versus Michael Wilson, 1 target, 1 reception, 30 yards. These are big plays. The 1 target, 1 reception just to him. Zay Jones, 1 target, 21 yards, 1 reception. And then Michael Carter, 1 reception, 1 target, 14 yards. These are all plays where he's there, right? Like he's not getting toasted. He's not tripping on his route like Mekhi Blackmon was in the last couple of weeks. Like he's there, right? And that's kind of what you want. Like you're just hoping you're close enough to the receiver that the quarterback's not going to throw the ball to your guy at that point. But I mean, as soon as you get 2 where you're up there in contested situations, that one to Marvin Harrison, the cross across the field was contested. The Trey McBride catch cross into the left was contested. He's there in a position to make a play, just not making the play. And then, I mean, once you get what those 2 plays combined is almost 50 yards for the Cardinals offense. You're going to keep targeting that guy. Maybe your confidence is a little bit shot if you're in the right position. You don't come down with those plays for an undrafted rookie to stick in there. I'll give props to Jonathan Edwards, but yeah, definitely he was someone that the Cardinals were targeting, and likely the Chargers will target if he's in an extended role this week, which it seems like who else is it going to be at this point? But the encouraging thing there with Jonathan Edwards is hopefully that's an experience, right? And you learn to keep your composure a little bit more at the catch point to break up those passes, but he's not getting roasted. He's not lost out there. Like he's in the right positions. He's covering the guys he's supposed to be covering. He's there. He's just not getting the hand in the way at the catch point. So yeah, that's something I think you see with a little bit more experience, a little bit more time to see some more composure when you're trying to break up those passes. We'll see if that develops with Jonathan Edwards. Hopefully for the Colts that develops quickly and he breaks up a couple of those. I think if he gets his hand in between 3 of those 6 or 7 that I read off, you're talking about a pretty good game from Jonathan Edwards. So yeah, I think it's just a couple coin flips here and there. If he keeps his composure, gains some confidence, I think he could be a really useful piece there for the Colts. But yeah, you don't want to go into next week with Mekhi Blackmon, Jonathan Edwards, Chris Lamons as your 3 corners. Hopefully you get Kenny Moore back. That gives you a little bit more flexibility. I feel like you just need to consider making a move. I don't know if a move's really going to help you this week with the Chargers coming up in 5 days for a game on Sunday. So yeah, this week you're just going to have to figure out how to operate with who you've got, figure out how to help out your guys, maybe shade a little bit of more safety help, run a little bit less press man. I know Jonathan Edwards that's his deal, right? He's long, strong, fast. He's a press man corner, but give him a little bit more help maybe at the press or at the catch point, and just a little bit more support there to make the target a little bit smaller for the opposing offense. So yeah, I mean, just the entire secondary, when those are your guys, right? It's not even the fact that they only had 4 healthy corners. It's who the 4 healthy corners were. Mekhi Blackman, traded a 6th-round pick, was likely going to get cut. Jonathan Edwards, undrafted free agent. Chris Lamons was a street free agent. And then elevated practice squad guy was your 4th guy. Like that's not the corner group that you want to be rolling out. And it's probably what you're going to be rolling out next week if you don't get Kenny Moore back. So yeah, the Colts are going to need to make some decisions schematically, not necessarily roster wise, but how they're going to be able to cover that up. Because I think Cameron Bynum's really playing well. Nick Cross is playing really well. You're really strong in the safety group. I don't think you've really missed any time from those 2 guys in the safety room. So rely on those guys to help out your cornerbacks a little bit more.
Yeah, and so just to kind of shift the attention real quick, and I'm going to reference, so I do 3 risers, good, 3 fallers, bad for every game, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a player. It can be a position group or just a concept, but I missed a very key one, and it's hard because there's just always so many. For fallers, I put stopping Trey McBride, I put allowing 3rd down conversions, and I put allowing Jacoby Brissett to have a massive performance. But there is a name on the Colts that ranks 136th out of 140 at his position in overall defensive grade, 118th out of 140 in coverage grade, 125th out of 140 in run defense grade. And in this game specifically, he was the worst defensive grade. He was the 3rd worst run grade, and he was looks like one of the bottom 5 in tackling efficiency. I'm talking about Zaire Franklin. Yep. He has looked awful this season. Zaire has he has not even necessarily been a super busy tackler like he usually is. Jermaine Pratt outperformed Zaire Franklin, and he had his first game as a Colt, right? So Noah, I don't know if it's the scheme. I don't know if it's just that defenses are becoming or offenses are becoming privy to what he can do. But I mean, yeah, like right now don't get me wrong, he's got 36 tackles. That's great, right? But you're talking about a guy who's coming off of 3 straight seasons of 167, 179, 173, averaging almost 10 and then 11 and then over 10 tackles a game. What do you think it is, man? Because the linebacker core needs to improve, but that's why you got Jermaine Pratt. You're hoping Jalen Carlisle can come back sooner rather than later. But dear Lord, one of your supposed to be top defensive players looks totally lost in this scheme. Like, he does.
I'm holding out hope for him a little bit. He did put together a pretty complete game last week.
Yes. Yeah.
Which was really kind of you say that, but it was kind of the first one of the season that he's really put together a complete game with. Maybe this just looks better if you have a different linebacker besides Zaire Franklin.
Yeah.
Where in the passing game, throughout the entire season, you haven't had a linebacker who can really cover anything short in the passing game. Joe Bocci wasn't doing it well. Cameron McGrone wasn't doing it well. Austin Ajaki wasn't doing it well. Jermaine Pratt also has never really in his career done that well. And was lost on there in numerous snaps this past week. So maybe that's putting a lot of pressure on Zaire Franklin to maybe overcompensate in some of his zones, play things a little bit more aggressively, which puts him a little bit more out of position in terms of pass defense, which is bad because pass defense hasn't been his thing to begin with. So you're taking what was a weakness in his game and maybe elevating that a little bit more and putting a little bit more pressure on him to do more when he necessarily isn't capable of that. But yeah, run defense, I think, is where you are like, this is your bread and butter. This is where you should be excelling. Run defense also hasn't been good from the other linebacker spots either. So, you get a good running mate beside him, and we'll see kind of what it looks like. I don't know that you're going to this season. They've made several different changes there, trying to rotate these guys. Jalen Carlisle's coming back from injury may be somebody you can throw in there, but again, he wasn't high on the depth chart when he was healthy during training camp. He had Joe Bocci, Austin Ajaki, Cameron McGrone, who ended up getting cut all above him, getting more snaps than him during the preseason and training camp. So I don't think it's like he's going to come back from injured reserve and be on a pedestal and get all this playing time from Louis Anarumo. I don't think he's going to be in that rotation immediately. So I think for the time being, it is Jermaine Pratt, Zaire Franklin, with Zaire Franklin kind of being the pass coverage linebacker out of those two, which is not a position that you want to be in. I think Zaire Franklin, Jermaine Pratt have really similar games. I think you're in a similar situation where it was like with EJ Speed last year, where neither of them were really strong in pass coverage, but they were both pretty solid run defenders. Put you in some bad spots when you were facing a passing offense that was able to attack some of those short and intermediate zones on the inside. And I think you're going to continue to see that until they get things shored up. But I think he has shown the capability that he can put together a pretty full game. Hopefully you see the run defense take up. I'm not expecting that much of a better performance in terms of pass cover, just because that's never been kind of what it's been. I think you just kind of have to do some things schematically to keep him out of situations where he's going to be one-on-one on running back split outside like he was against Michael Carter a couple times this game, where, I mean, he's lined up on the outside. You see him follow a guy in motion all the way to the sideline. You're like, oh, please don't throw to that side of the field. Luckily, Jacoby Brissett threw it a little short on that one to Michael Carter, because I think, just athletically, I think you're going to see the Colts lose that battle on the outside if that happens. And even on the interior, just kind of maintaining some zone integrity. Maybe you use Nick Cross, Cam Bynum a little bit more in a robber role, where they're kind of up there a little closer to the line of scrimmage, covering those intermediate zones in the middle to help out with that. This is just going to be awareness from Lou Anarumo, I think, of understanding what your strengths are at the position and how you can kind of hide that and use the strong safety play you've been getting all season to your advantage to supplement that.
They really need to figure it out, because defenses are attacking them over the middle. Jacoby Brissett was constantly trying to throw it wherever Zaire Franklin was. But we'll see. And one more thing that we'll mention is we'll see what happens ahead of the trade deadline. Everybody's, saying linebacker, saying defensive edge. Mm-hmm. The Colts might need to trade for a corner. You don't know. Who knows how severe Jalen Jones's injury is? Charvarius Ward has his second concussion in 6 games. Xavier Howard retired, and Kenny Moore is hurt with an Achilles injury, which, while they haven't put him on IR, that is an injury that you just can't say, okay, you're good, go out there. You can't throw a guy out there 80, 90% like you can an ankle or, a shoulder. Or, you got to think Julian Blackman played with basically a screwed up rotator cuff. So you can't do that with an Achilles injury. So we'll see what happens. The Colts did free up room readjusting Moore's contract. So, but guys, that's our show. At the end of the day, this is a team that did a good job of traversing just ridiculous pregame circumstances. You lose arguably your top, well, maybe not the top, but like a top 3 defensive player on your roster. So anyway, before we keep going here, like the Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow Indianapolis Colts on SI, and of course on X, we're at Colts_SI. Subscribe to us on YouTube and click the bell to turn on all the notifications if you want to listen. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, and wherever else you check out our podcast. Guys, thank you so much again for adjusting to our changing schedule. It happens sometimes, but we are going to be back here on Thursday night to preview a 4:00 game that I really think, Noah, is going to tell you, especially going into week 7, it's going to tell you what this Colts team is made of, because I know that the Rams and the Broncos are incredibly stiff competition. They've got great coaches. But, man, there's just something about Jim Harbaugh. Very gritty. He's going to try to run the crap out of the ball despite their running back issues. Justin Herbert's a hell of a quarterback, and that secondary will be facing Quentin Johnson. They'll be facing Keenan Allen. They're going to be facing a pretty potent team. So
and this is the first time you're playing one of these higher level teams in the league with the adversity that you've got going into the game, with these injuries on the defensive side of the ball, some of these struggles that you've had. This is what January football is going to be about. Is about next man up and playing good teams. So, very good litmus test for where the Colts are going to be at.
Well, hey, guys, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Have a great week, and we will see you all again here on Thursday night to talk more Colts football. Take care.